Hi, my name is Sarah McDonald of Column 152, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about fake news, the COVID-19 pandemic, and how active audiences play a role within all of this. So here we can see that throughout the pandemic, we have a new language developing. We have entirely new terms that we never used to use before the pandemic that are now just everyday language. We can see on the next slide here a little bit of a word cloud for you. We can see all these different terms that were just never used before the pandemic. So things like SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, quarantine, ventilator, coughs, face masks, senior citizens, viruses. These were words that weren't really dinner table conversations, but nowadays are just part of the everyday language. Even pandemic-specific products are just part of the everyday norms, whether that be N95 face ventilator masks or even mask knee relief kits that are $70 sprays that you could put on your face to help acne. These are just new things that have come about because of the use of the media. And even throughout this, we can see something called an infodemic approaching. An infodemic is when the increase of fake information is spreading higher than the rate of real, legitimate, verified information. So an example of what an infodemic may be and the byproducts of that. April 23rd of 2020, at a presidential press conference, President Donald Trump made a sarcastic joke about studying the use of UV light and injecting disinfectants as a means of COVID-19 treatment. Now the media got a hold of this and people started using these as means of treatment. So they were standing in UV lights and injecting Lysol into their bodies. Public health professionals sought to correct the misconceptions in the media about this as quickly as possible. April 24th of 2020, the Maryland Department of Emergency Management posted a reminder on their Twitter account that, quote, "Under no circumstances should any disinfectant product be administered into the body," end quote. So what is the role of the active audience here? What autonomy do we have within this? Now there's three main theories about the role that we can play here. We have interpretation. Interpretation is our first one and believes that audiences may construct different meanings from what is intended by the producer. We aren't always free agents though. We have our culture and social structures that affect our interpretations. So for example here, an audience may not have understood that President Trump's intent of making a joke within his statements. They may not have understood that and decided to take that as literal news. Another theory is encoding or decoding, and it believes that audiences have the autonomy to decode messages within three different models. The three different models are thus. They are the dominant, which is the agreeing view with the producer's intent, the oppositional view, which disagrees with the producer's intent, and the negotiative view, which is a little mix between the both of agreement and disagreement. An example of this might be that public health officials had an oppositional view of what President Trump was saying as a means of medical advice. The last theory that we see here is the uses and gratifications theory. This believes that media and content choice is rational overall and directed towards certain goals and satisfactions for the audience members. Interpretation of media content differs based on the audience's specific needs and goals for using the media. So an example of this. Some may have been watching that press conference on April 23rd for the needs of information and education, and therefore may have been confused and conflicted when hearing President Trump's claims in the context of it being a sarcastic joke. So within this, we have to think about now the growing influence of social media as news. Whether we like it or not, these are now becoming primary sources of news. The Harvard Kennedy School explains that Twitter especially is observed to spread news extremely efficiently that has not been verified or fact-checked. We also within this see the correlations between social media exposures and misconceptions. Studies have showed an increased correlation between media use and misconceptions about the efficacy of mask use, social distancing, and even vaccines. Lastly, if we think beyond the pandemic, we have to see that studies have indicated that fake news spreads fervently for any sort of polarizing topic. So thinking beyond the pandemic, when the pandemic ends, polarizing topics are always going to be a part of the media. They're always going to be a part of conversations. So how do we as Christians, upholders of the truth, balance the dichotomy between news spread and freedom of speech while also being upholding of the truth and legitimate facts? Thank you all so much for your time. Here are my references here, and I want to thank you all so much. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm Sarah McDonald of Comm 152. Thank you.